Welcome back to Crucible Mixtapes. I'm your host, Dev. Today we'll be showcasing a Chaos Reach Geomags build for the Warlock. This is not anything new. It's a build that's been around since Forsaken, but I don't think a lot of people have been thinking about it recently, and it came to my attention during trials. Basically what happened was we played a long game, and by the second round, enemy Warlock had his Chaos Reach super, and lo and behold, he had 90 intelligence. So it made me decide to copy it and try it out and see what's up with it. So this is the 90 intelligence, or 100, or even 80 intelligence Warlock build utilizing Geomag stabilizers. You don't exactly need 100 intelligence or even 90. I think 80 is a pretty good cutoff, and the reason for that is because the exotic perk of Geomag stabilizers, they allow you to top off your Chaos Reach energy when it's almost full. You need approximately like 80% of your super ready, and then the last 20% you can run it off, and it winds up cutting it down. You save about 20 to 30 seconds off your super in terms of getting it up. You also have a longer Chaos Reach if you connect with them. It doesn't really come into play too much in PvP, but it makes it a tiny bit more forgiving. So yeah, we're going to show this build in some PvP matches. The main idea behind it is to use the clock to help you win. You want to get off as many super abilities off as possible while living. The other thing you want to do is have a class item set up for your special weapon of choice. See how I have two pump action mods on my build. This allows me to get a bigger chunk of super energy on shotgun kills. If you don't want to do this, you can always substitute for an intellect mod and change it up to whatever you need. I usually use the pump action or the remote connection. Remote connection is really good with a revoker, and in those long Trials of Osiris and comp games, you're probably going to wind up getting sniper kills anyways, so this helps you snowball off of that. Another thing that helps you snowball further is the Ionic Trace perk on this build. Getting kills gets you a chance to make an Ionic Trace, and they grant cooldown reduction to all of your abilities, super included. It's a tiny chunk to your super. It's not as big as the dual remote connection or pump action ones, but it's still pretty good. It's nice to have CDR built into your build. The other thing about this build that may get people to not want to use it is Ball Lightning. It's a pretty weak melee. It only does 101 damage max. You can make it stronger with Thunder Coil, but I don't utilize that in my build. You're definitely welcome to if you like that. But what's good about Ball Lightning is, in the ideal scenario, it's good at catching people who are running towards you predictably, and good at killing people who are hiding behind a box or a Titan barricade. It's pretty easy to land those overhead hits. What you would do is aim it up, and then it gets people hiding behind a box. To get the max damage, you would aim it directly at them and hit them with the ball, but if you can't get max damage, you can usually get 70 damage by having the lightning hit them, if that's what the situation calls. The other thing that matters with this build highly is the perk within Chaos Reach. Obviously you can cast Chaos Reach, but you can also cancel Chaos Reach early to save energy. It even says, while active, press the button to deactivate Chaos Reach early and save super energy. So part of this super is saving the super for later. We're going to be using this throughout the entire build. You want to always save your super. The worst case scenario is casting Chaos Reach and dying within the cast. If you can tell that you're taking damage and you're about to die, make sure you press the cancel button to save your super. This will help you get a super cooldown that is faster than any other character in the game. Cannot emphasize this enough. You need to learn how to develop the sense to understand when to cancel Chaos Reach, and you should always be canceling it, even if there's just no reason not to. Just cancel it towards the end, just save that super. And then there's also Pulse Wave within this class. Basically, going low triggers a speed boost that accounts for you and your allies. It's a great buff. It just takes you getting low. But for the most part, if you're getting into a hand cannon duel, or if you get body shot by a sniper, you'll just activate this. It'll make it easier for you to run away, easier for you to get in and out of the fight. Now, since we are using Geomags, it begs the question, should I have them on all the time or only when my super is near? And you can definitely substitute Geomags for a similar intelligence build, transverse steps, if you're more muscle memory attuned to this. And then what I would do is I would use these up until about 60% super, and I'd switch over to these and top off my super when I get towards that 80%. But if you don't want to deal with that, you just want a seamless experience, you're welcome to just keep the Geomags on all the time. Another thing is, if you're playing against Thorn users, you might want to switch up to 6 resilience. That's why I say you don't need 100 intellect. 100 gives you the 348 super cooldown. 352 is pretty good too. But again, some lobbies require you to switch up your resilience, so just be ready to do that. Be flexible with your resilience values. And the recovery stat I have here is somewhat low. This is really just a build that I came up with not too long ago. I didn't really have the proper items to make it happen. But if you can somehow get 90 or 100 intelligence with 100 recov, there's definitely ways to do that. I totally recommend it. That's probably ideal as hell here. And your weapons, it's whatever you want. I mean, you can definitely do the Dire Promise and Mindbender, Spare Ration Mindbenders, Revoker Waking Vigil, Revoker Hardlight, Meta Slave builds. All these builds fit into this. We're really just looking to be good off of the base Warlock and also snowballing our super cooldown off of the class item perks. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. It's not that hard to pull off this build. You don't need fully masterworked items, but if you have those, they help because it adds an additional 10 to all of your stats, so definitely recommend having that. I'm going to open up with this Convergence gameplay where I'll briefly talk about what's going on here. It's just a normal survival game. It's one where I actually kind of start rolling, and I'm using at least 8 intellect in this match, and I'm using the double pump action and remote connection mods depending on which weapon I need at the moment. Usually when it comes to Convergence, I use Revoker. It just seems way too good to pass up on this map. There's a lot of long hallways, and there's almost always an initial sniper fight. It's just a lot of map to cover if you want to pull off a shotgun fight. But if your two allies are using Revoker, then feel free to switch off to a Mindbender if you don't want to be triple sniper. But on this map, triple sniper might even be the option. So anyways, we're just playing round 1, and what winds up happening is once we start up with round 2, I pop up with a surprise super at the beginning of the round. And the enemy does not expect this. It's due to my high intellect and the fact that I pick up the kills during the initial round, getting that remote connection bug. Other than that, for that game, once you get your first super off successfully, you can just start terrorizing them with the danger of your next super. Sometimes I've been able to cast 2 supers before an enemy is even able to do 1. And I've had people whisper me asking if I'm cheating. They think I'm hacking because I have so many supers, or I'm able to have a super at least once a round after that first super. And that's really what you want to be going for with this build. You want to have the constant threat of a super just available. Now, against certain players, it's not going to work out how you want to. Certain players are just really good at countering Chaos Reach. You're mostly a sitting duck in the super, and that's the biggest con. The 2 cons of this class are the weak melee and the somewhat easy to shut down super. But if you're able to overcome this, you're presented with a class that gives you the shortest super cooldown of any other super in the game. In comp and trials, you may even consider using your laser beam to just kill 1 person, just to get them out of the round, just to finish that life. They get salty if you do that. Imagine just showing up to people and laser beaming 1 guy. Feels very personal, especially if you do it to that same 1 guy over and over. But I've been able to pull that off in several comp games where there's just 1 player on the enemy team who's the best, and he's alone, and I get him with the laser beam. He's not able to counter it. The laser beam itself does about 95, 98 damage per tick, so it's going to kill them in usually 2, maybe 3 ticks. It's very fast. If you don't see yourself connecting with them within like 1.5 to 2 seconds, I'd suggest either switching to another target or canceling your super. I've failed this super more than probably even Nova Bomb, But the saving grace of failing your super is being able to save some super for your next super. Jeez, it's almost like saving dinner, like saving leftovers. But if you fail your super, the next best case scenario is not dying. You don't want to die when using Chaos Reach. Even if you just kill one guy and you can't make it to the other guy, if you're going to die or you perceive that you're about to die, make sure you press your super button before it happens. Because then you'll be working with at least like 20% super instead of the base 0% super like everyone else does, like the plebs do, you know what I mean? When you're using this build, your luxury is being able to just think about your future super in your current super by being able to kill someone as fast as possible. The best Chaos Reach supers are when you get a team wipe, you kill all 3 instantly or within like 2 seconds, and then you're able to save like 1/4 of your super and have that threat. If the games go to time, if they go to the max amount of time in these trials rounds or in the comp rounds, then that's just more time for your super. It's just more threat building up for your super. If you're on comms with your teammates, you can tell them like, hey guys, I just need 30 seconds and now my super's up. Let's just play to the overtime and I'll show up in my super. It's really good. You can kind of become the sacrificial lamb for your team and just throw out a super before anyone else on their team has to use their supers. Chaos Reach is somewhat seen as like a throwaway super in a way. I don't know, people like the weight of Chaos Reach as opposed to like a Spectral Blades or a Dawn Blade super feels less, and if you're able to pull that off safely in a comp game or in trials, you take off some weight from the other players needing to use their super to fish for kills. You know, you try and fish for 1, maybe 2 kills with your super, and then you open up map pressure for your teammates to finish off with their supers, or to just finish off with their revokers or shotguns. So it's really cool. What I will say though is just understand when to get off this subclass. This subclass is somewhat easily countered by people who have seen it before, people who are just better players. I mean, you don't even have to play this class too much to know how to counter it, because again, the melee sucks and laser beam is somewhat easy to put down. But if you become good at this class, then you probably will be better at all the other Warlock classes too. There's just not that much going on for the base of this class. Like, it just feels mid-tier. So if you can be good at a mid-tier option, then when you're playing with a top-tier option, it's going to feel completely steamroll. It's going to feel so easy. And that's mostly why I use this. It's kind of just like training wheels, or like training weights rather. It's not free wins. I don't feel like I ever really get free wins from this. Even when I'm using the Chaos Reach to the max cooldown reduction and I'm getting multiple cooldowns off of my Chaos Reach per round, or per game rather, I don't feel like this subclass gives me free wins. And if every time I pull off like a ball lightning kill that the enemy didn't expect, I feel extremely satisfied. It's like mental. You really have to be able to gauge your fights with this. I think another big con with this is that you're just dealing with the base Warlock class that doesn't have Icarus Dash, and I feel like sometimes the Warlock glide is the worst out of all of the glides, especially if you're not using transfer steps. It just feels really committal and predictable in a way where an enemy can easily headshot you out of your burst, or they can track you a lot easier, I feel, if you're not using Blink or Icarus Dash, which is why I feel Icarus Dash is obviously the best out of all of the Warlock neutral games currently, especially after Mid-Tree Void was nerfed. Definitely, it's now the A tier choice. This comes up as like a B minus tier, but if you can be good with the B minus tier, you'll probably be a lot better on your other options once you start playing with those again. And I think having this skill set is really valuable as a player. You can just offer a super, almost kind of cheesy build that people don't see coming until it's too late. Like, once you have that first super in a match, it's already too late for them. They're going to die to it, and you're already starting off your next super. And that's just really good. You can beat the clock, you can favor the clock, you can sword peek like everyone else does in trials, and just have that super ticking up in the background. I'm your host, Dev. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode. I've actually been sitting on this episode for about a week, but I wanted to get enough footage with this build to see if it was viable. It is a bit of a snowbally build, and you may have some really bad games with this build, but I really think it's an intriguing way to play the game, and if you can put up with some of the shortcomings of this build, you'll find that it's a good skill set to have in your back pocket. Just like you can always have a laser in your pocket, this build in your back pocket will serve you well, and it'll counter and make people rage. You may even get people rage quitting on you just for how many supers you're getting in a game, and that feels somewhat satisfying to see. So I wish you luck, I wish you well, and I hope you're able to get some good success with this build like I have. Cheers.